Here we are.
Hi everybody, I'm Selena Brilla, and this is DIY Live, Huntsville, Alabama's Facebook page dedicated to capturing the underground. I'm here live at Mad Malt's Brewery. It is February 1st, 2025, and this is Mr. Bill Conflict.
Hello, everyone.
I've been wanting to interview you for a very long time.
And here we are, making it happen.
That's right.
Appropriately at a show.
Yep, at an all-ages show, too, which is freaking fabulous.
Oh, it's thriving around here.
It is. We've got a pretty good punk rock scene around here. So, Bill, let's get to know you a little bit. You're from North Alabama?
Yeah, not originally. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, but yeah, Muscle Shoals area.
Muscle Shoals area.
Been there since the late 70s.
Okay, since the late 70s. You are, of course, like I know you from the band Random Conflict.
Right.
But you have been in other bands as well.
Yeah, in fact, the band I'm in right now, I know Asylum, is sort of a hodgepodge of people I've been in past groups with. Tammy, our bass player, me and her were in a band called Blood Red Baby Blue together years ago.
I heard about Blood Red Baby Blue.
Bo, the lead singer, he and I were in a band called Social Freezing, even more years ago.
I didn't know you and Bo were in another band together.
Social Freezing, we were in it from 2006 to 2008.
Wow. Okay. See, this is why we do these interviews, because you learn stuff about people. Awesome. So let's hear about you. You grew up in Memphis, or you grew up in Muscle Shoals?
Memphis.
You grew up in Memphis.
And the Muscle Shoals area.
Okay. What was high school like for you, being a punk kid in the South?
Not as bad as you might have thought, especially in the late 70s. I mean, some people didn't really quite understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But they were kind of cool with the fact I was into it. Of course, I mean, I got messed with by my friends all the time because, for the most part, it was like a real life version of Dazed and Confused, or these old films you see like set in the 70s, like the Stone Age, and yeah, it was pretty much like that in real life.
Fun. Okay, so it was a lot like the movies, like we would have imagined it to be.
There were some people I hung out with, I played on sports teams with, that towards the end of like 1977, they were kind of like, hey, man, we know you're into this punk thing. I'm just kind of curious, man. We're partying tonight, and yes, in somebody's basement, as usual. Just like you see in the movies and TV shows from back then. So I took over Sex Pistols, Ramones, Dead Boys, and they were actually surprisingly, and these were guys I was on the wrestling team with and things like that. Mm-hmm. These are your typical North Alabama good old boy jock guys, and party animal types. They were surprisingly kind of open to it. But kind of the catch on that was, it didn't mean a thing to them culturally or politically or anything like that. It was just some loud, obnoxious, hard driving music. They liked it for the same reasons that we all sit around listening to Kiss and Deep Purple and pre-Insanity Ted Nugent and Aerosmith and Black Sabbath. Same reason we listen to stuff like that. They kind of took to the punk thing. They didn't really have an interest in the culture around it.
Mm. They weren't into changing the world.
No, they just like, hey man, this is pretty heavy, man. This is obnoxious. Let's get drunk.
Yeah, it's obnoxious. Let's get drunk. But
they were my friends, and they were pretty open to it in that sense.
Good. When did you start making music?
Well, I first started attempting when I was about 14 or 15, but I had no clue as to what I was doing. It was years before I was ever in any kind of real band, and the first real band I was ever in was this punk band, which was kind of an anomaly for North Alabama in 1983. They were called Suburban Nightmare.
Suburban Nightmare, first band. Okay.
And we played a few shows because, as you can guess, in that area, show options were very limited. In fact, we kind of had to, typical story, we kind of had to make our own thing, whether it was somebody's house or this upstairs loft where everybody skateboarded, and just whatever shows happened took place in these really off, out of the way places. And I'm happy to say what little tiny scene that coalesced around it. Mostly it was everybody that skateboarded.
It's still a lot. There's still lots
there
of
was one record
skateboarders
store.
in the punk.
There was one record store called Pegasus Records. It was started in 1980 and finally folded in 2016. And the guy that owned it was a really cool guy, and he would order us anything we wanted. So you couldn't just go into a store and find Black Flag or Dead Kennedys or anything like that in 1981, at least in our area, North Alabama. So the guy at Pegasus, a guy named Joey, he would order that stuff for us. Sooner or later, all of us, the dozen of us that were all ordering that stuff individually, started finding out about each other. And we're like, okay, we need to meet.
Yeah, yeah.
Which we did.
Yeah.
And there was a band around back then by a friend of mine, still a good friend of mine. He was a transplant from Orange County, California. A guy named Tom. Had a band called the Chromatics. He moved to Muscle Shoals. He was going to try to break into the studio scene, form the Chromatics. And it would probably be called pop punk. It was just kind of new wave power pop. Wasn't what you call hardcore, but it was great stuff. I still listen to the demos because that was one of my big inspirations.
Awesome.
Having something like that around. And people around Shoals area wanted to kill us.
Oh gosh.
We weren't even that outlandish looking, but they knew, boy, there was something different about us, and they didn't like it.
Yeah, I've heard that from other people down here around the same time as you're talking about getting very negative treatment from people because of being punk, because of the new type of music they were playing, because other people not wanting it around where they are.
But we had a little scene coalesce around the Chromatics and skateboarding. And a lot of those people, unfortunately, are no longer around.
That is
But
unfortunate.
there's a lot of them that are around still that I'm still friends with to this day, and they've made it to their senior years with personalities intact.
Good. That's awesome.
That was kind of the beginning for me. I was kind of your typical partying headbanger kid of the 70s that one day was looking in a Hit Parader magazine, probably because Kiss was on the cover, and wow, what's this band called? The Ramones.
Right.
Just put their first album out. They look like the people I hang out with. I'm going to check this out. And I put it on, I'm like, holy crap. This is like Black Sabbath at Warp Speed. Hell yeah, and that was the beginning.
Yep. The Ramones, I think, were the beginning for
That's
many
pretty much
musicians.
I was a little late getting to that because that first Ramones album had already been out for a few months, and it wasn't until really the spring or the fall of '76 that I was able to find it. You couldn't just go into the store and find stuff like that back then.
Yeah. See, I'm from a big city, so it was different.
The record store managers or people like that were like, hell no, you're not putting this crap in here alongside, whatever Afternoon Delight or whatever horrible stuff was around back then.
Afternoon Delight. So you started music very young then, in high school years. And then,
started it. I wouldn't say I really knew what I was doing until much later.
Right. But
I'm still not sure I know what I'm doing.
But you're still doing it all this time later.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. So when did Random Conflict come into the picture of things?
Random Conflict, First Generation, or Part 1, whatever you want to call it. That would have been in the summer of '88 through the summer of '92. And just like when we kind of revived ourselves in 1996. And we're still a band. We just aren't an active one right now.
Yeah.
But that's going to hopefully change in the next several months. But in both cases, we were just going to get together, put together some songs, put together some cover songs, play for a couple of shows during that summer, and that was going to be it. Well, it didn't stop.
Where you guys played?
Until it stopped. And then in '96, we kind of revived ourselves with a couple of new people, and Ray, new bass player, and we've never really stopped. We've had changes, but we've never really stopped. So that's kind of where that started.
And you guys have toured, and you've
yeah.
played with bands, and you've been. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what was that like? Tell us about your tours and people you played with.
Oh, I mean, it's kind of cool. I got to play with a lot of bands I grew up being influenced by, like became friends with a lot of them. People like Agent Orange and bands like 7 Seconds and
I just saw them not Jazz. It was a couple years ago, but for me, I was like,
Circle Jerks.
Got to see them. Yeah.
Yep, was that Circle Jerks?
No, but it was at Riot Fest in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
I went to see the original Misfits.
All right. How was that?
It was great.
Okay,
It was
I
great.
imagine.
Yes, it was really good.
But yeah, that's always fun. I'm happy to say that in just about every case, every time we've ever played with a band of some stature like that, some legendary stature, or that are so-called big band, they've always turned out to be pretty decent people.
Awesome.
They've always turned out to be pretty okay people.
Punks are good, right? Punks are good folks.
Well, you figure, hey, they'd have an attitude. No, that's really not the case. The worst attitudes I found is local bands that are like they think they're the local rock stars.
And they haven't been out of their town yet.
They are barely out of their neighborhood.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna get into that.
No, let's not do that.
But at the same time, I mean, it's kind of cool to have those opportunities. All those years of running the roads, I couldn't really tell you any particular favorite. That run we did up the East Coast to New York City and back will always stand out in my mind. I really wish we could repeat that and do that again, because that was just such a great experience. Got to play at a pretty legendary venue, a place called ABC No Rio.
Oh, wow.
It got torn down. It's actually been rebuilt in its original spot on the Lower East Side. It's like a collective, a commune.
That's cool.
Yeah, by Tompkins Square Park. I've heard about that place for decades, and to get to play there, we got lucky. We got on some kind of special event show that was going on there. Therefore, we had a big crowd one time in New York City. Going out west, going down to the Gulf Coast a lot. Just never made it too far out west as far as like the West Coast. We just never quite pulled that off. Or overseas.
Well, there's still time.
Oh yeah.
Still plenty of time. Nope. Plus you're in No Asylum now, which is another band. And any other projects?
That's about all I'm doing right now. There's some guys. One of them I grew up with. He was one of the aforementioned first punk rockers I ever met in the city of Florence at Muscle Shoals. A guy named Max Russell, who's gone on to make a real name for himself in the blues scene.
Ooh.
But he wanted to put together something a little more rocking.
Yeah.
And we do this band called Soul Preacher. I play bass in, but we might play once or twice a year. And his son plays drums with us. And I literally was there the day he was born.
That's awesome.
41 years ago. So I've literally known him his whole life. And it's not really hardcore. It's more like kind of Social Distortion, early Stones type stuff. But that's not really a full-time band. But I enjoy it. I mean, all I got to do is show up and play bass. I don't book shows. I don't write it. I just show up.
That's fun.
It's kind of nice just to be that guy for a change.
I've seen you in other bands too. I saw you play with Red Mouth.
Yeah, Red Mouth band.
Yeah. And then there was another one, which was like a more heavy, I want to say it started with a G. My memory is trying to pull it up.
If it's the band I'm thinking of, I prefer to not acknowledge
We don't have
that.
to.
I think I know who you're talking about.
We don't have to.
For reasons I'm not going to get into, I don't really want to acknowledge
doesn't matter.
I took that one off my resume.
It doesn't matter then. I'm glad I didn't remember the name. See? The universe was working in our favor in that one.
Found out some very horrible things about one of the people I was in that band.
That always sucks. It sucks because you can't ever know everything about anybody.
Nope.
And then when you do things like artistically or creatively with them, and then these things come out later, there's this backlash. As if somehow you were supposed. How would you? No, you're not going to know.
I did.
There's
Otherwise,
not.
I would have.
There's not ways to know.
Far from that.
Exactly.
Had a band called Bloody Sacrifice. They were kind of like an old school type death metal band.
Mm-hmm.
And in the sense of, when I say death metal, in the sense of like Creator, Slayer, Obituary.
Oh, fun.
Did that for a couple of years back in 2008 to 2010.
Fun. That sounds like a lot of fun. Pardon them. I should have brought some water with me.
It's all good. I sometimes worry I'm going to forget all the bands I've been in at some point.
Probably. Yeah. So, what do you think? Like you were talking about how the friends of yours wouldn't really get the essence of the punk music that you were bringing, right?
Oh, yeah.
That they were going to look through those eyes. What do you think really is that you experience and they don't experience about punk?
Just, I don't know. I guess we're all sum total of our experiences, and these guys were cool folks, but they weren't really, for the most part, as angst-ridden as I was.
I think angst definitely has a big play in punk and in background, where you're from, the things that have happened to you and your experiences. Yeah.
I think I should look back on it now here. How long would that have been? Like 48 years later? Whatever 1977 to 2025 would be. I remember the night in this guy. Every one of us bought something to the table in that little circle of friends. And most of them I'm still friends with.
That's great.
Even though there are a lot of them that moved out of far from the area. The guy next door to me had the basement, the pool table, and the great stereo.
That's awesome.
He was the one little rich kid among us. The guy down the street had the best record collection.
There you go.
And I knew to find all the weird stuff.
Love it. Love the weird stuff.
And then we had somebody else that, if there were any girls to bring, bought the girls. That often didn't work out. But what was funny is I remember the very first time they put on that Sex Pistols album, and they were on the Bullets album that just came out in Britain, and I bought it on import. Dropped the needle, it kicks in, and it was like their instinct. They knew nothing about the punk scene. They'd never seen what film of it existed. Their instinct was to jump up and down.
Okay.
But they didn't know what pogoing was. They'd never heard about that.
That's kind
That was like there was almost primordial instinct to that.
That's cool.
I look back on it now. Of course, I didn't think anything of it back then. We're all just like, yeah, party.
That's cool though. Like, never ever heard it before. See, by the time I was a teenager, I'd already heard all that stuff. And for all of you guys, it was like brand spanking, never existed before. And
I always remember like PJ Souls who starred in Rock and Roll High School.
Right.
Ramones and Halloween. And
helped fund it too. She helped pay for that. She's a pretty cool person.
First time I ever met her, she's a real sweetheart. I've met her a few times.
Nice.
To the point when she kind of recognizes me and come in and cross paths. I asked her, I said, okay, I know that was your character in Rock and Roll High School, your friend.
Yeah.
Did you actually legitimately like the Ramones on any level? She goes, oh yeah, I loved it. I mean, I became a real fan.
Yeah.
I said, so what was your first reaction? You did Halloween. You were one of the mean girls in Halloween. And like I said, it was a whole other story. Some of the stories she told me about being on that film were hysterical.
Oh, that's funny.
But she said, well, John Carpenter handed me his cassette and said, or not John Carpenter, who did she say the director was? So I think Roger Corman was the executive producer. He did a lot of those kind of films. And she'd just been in Halloween and Carrie. And they handed her a cassette. Said, this is a band called the Ramones. Now, originally, it was going to be called Disco High, which that ended pretty quick, thankfully.
Yeah.
Then they were going to get Cheap Trick to be the band. And then they blew up with that Live at Budokan album, which the anniversary is today.
Oh.
For that album.
The anniversary is today. Okay.
And we go, well, let's try this band, the Ramones. They needed a break, need some exposure. And she said, my listening at that time was all James Taylor, Linda Ronstadt, Fleetwood Mac, like every other 21-year-old. I put that on, and my first impulse was, oh my God, what is this? But then I thought, well, I'm in this film with these guys, I need to familiarize myself. She said, the more I kept playing it, by the third go-around, I was totally into this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I can see that.
And I became a fan.
Woohoo!
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting anecdote.
Yeah. That's all. Funny that it would have been Cheap Trick to be on there. That's funny.
Well, if had they not blown up, you know, because they'd had albums out and they had a fan base, but they had not blown up into a big thing yet. Then that live album did, and they're like, well, we can't afford them.
No, you can't. I actually just watched that movie not that long ago on Tubi again, because I hadn't seen it in a few years. And then when I was a little girl, I saw that movie, and I was like, I love it. I love punk music. I'm gonna, you know, and I love metal. I was a headbanger in high school.
It's a natural progression for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's why people are a little bit, in fact, some people were kind of hostile to it when the whole punk and metal crossover started happening in the early 80s. I was totally down with it, because once I'm into something, I don't stop being into it. Just because I started liking the Sex Pistols or the Ramones or whatever, it doesn't mean I quit liking, you know, Pink Floyd.
Right, exactly. Just
Black Sabbath, you know,
you
I
don't
just
take
kept
any,
adding on to it.
You don't take the music out. You just add to it. It's this never-ending, like, you can add music forever.
Oh yeah, well today, first thing this morning, you know, I got the first 2 Van Halen albums on, which I'm still loving.
Nice, good. Before I got here tonight, I was listening to some of my favorite, well, I don't really have favorite music, but to some music before I was coming over here, of course.
I didn't really see why the big split was, you know. I mean, you had that early thing in the 70s where the hard rock arena crowd and the prog rock crowd were like, this punk shit sucks. And the few punk kids were around were like, this stuff's old, it needs to be done away with.
Right.
Of course, a lot of people kind of got into punk and they abandoned everything they grew up with. Of course, a year later they rebought it. You know?
Right.
They were getting those first punk records going, I don't need this Steve Miller Band record later with this. I don't need this Jethro Tull album or Yes album. But of course, 6 months later you're buying it all back.
Exactly. Because you can always add more music. You don't ever have to take it away. You don't ever have to stop liking something to like something else.
That doesn't mean to say I like a lot. I can't always separate an artist from their work. That's a pretty hard one for me.
Yeah. I don't actually read that much about a lot of, well, that's not true. I like biographies, and I do like to learn about people. That is true. But,
I mean, some of my biggest guitar influences, I've come to find out, are not in a sleazy, creepy way, but they're just jokes.
I had a friend of mine, I was at a show, and we were talking about that, like separating the musician from the music. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to have to do that. I'm going to have to do that.
Talking about Van Halen, by all accounts, Eddie Van Halen was a real, I hate to speak ill of the dead, one of my big influences, a brilliant player, but he was also a complete joke. The way he dealt with the band, with other people.
Yeah.
And that's not a deal breaker for me as far as liking their music. Now, if they've done something really horrible, like you hear so much, like as we speak, this whole night horrible P. Diddy thing.
Oh God, no! You know, I can't follow it. I can't follow it. I can't. I never liked him. I never liked his music, and now I know why.
I can't with that.
No, I can't.
That's the line crossed.
But I also think that's I don't know. One of the things that I love about punk and punk music is that it's always the underdog. It's the people that aren't spoken up for, the people who aren't represented, the people who aren't, you know, a part of the larger scene of the world, you know.
I'm listening, I'm just watching this crowd, I'm like, where did all these people come from?
I think the band ended.
When we stepped out here, there weren't that many people here. Now all of a sudden half of Madison County.
Isn't it great? It's so good to have such good
There's a kitty.
Yes. Oh yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of the beginnings, and Huntsville here, where we're at now, had a hell of a thriving scene going on from about 87 to about
I wanted
92.
to hear about that. Yes, from 87 to what?
About 92. We did these shows at the National Guard Armory. It was really cheap to rent. And back in those pre-social media days, just a few strategically placed flyers. And word of mouth, you'd have 300, 400 people at the show.
Yeah.
And that was just almost totally word of mouth. And like I say, a few strategic flyers in a couple of different places. Sunburst Records, which hasn't existed since 2007. And it was a real local record store, and it was sort of the hub of activity. If you wanted to know what was going on in Huntsville, worth checking out, go look on the door at Sunburst Records, because that was like the scene bulletin board.
Perfect. Yeah.
And the owner of the store, a guy named Jay, he wasn't really in the scene per se, but he was a really great, he still is, great guy, and was extremely supportive.
You don't have to like the music, but you can support it.
I mean, he would pop up occasionally, but, you know, it wasn't really his thing for the most part. I don't want to speak for him, but, you know, punk and hardcore and death metal and all wasn't really his thing, but he was very supportive.
Yeah. I'm not being from here. I was very surprised at what a thriving punk scene there is here.
Where are you from?
Chicago.
Did you ever go to the Fireside Bowl?
I did not. I lived down the street from there, and before I got the chance.
We played there once, and it was an awesome experience.
I went in the building once, but they had already stopped having shows. Yeah.
That was so cool to play there on the stage.
I've seen
old school bowling alley, like you expect the Untouchables to
It's a very cool place.
come in and have a shootout with Al Capone or something, and yet you're having punk shows. That's so awesome.
It's a very, very cool place, and I've seen lots of great videos from there, but I did not get to experience the punk in there. And I didn't live far from there either. But
I know people that were in New York City for decades never went to CBGB's.
Right.
And where they were into it, they just never made it.
Yep. I was just young, and I didn't know, and I had kids young, and I went to work
I gave
young.
an experience myself, and I don't know how old you are or what your life was, but I bet, like me, I bet you probably thought something's going to be around forever.
Oh, sure. You always do think things are going to be around forever.
I mean, we couldn't conceive of a world without hundreds of people at Armory shows in 1988 around here. No Sunday records.
I know. I've always heard about those. Well, we both know Jay, Punk Rock Jay, and back after I had my son here in 2003, and we went to a punk show somewhere on Jordan Lane. I was so shocked at how many people were there. It was so many people. I thought that the little deck it was on was going to collapse, and I was like, it was really blown away because I wasn't expecting that. And then later on, I saw my punk shows here, as well as like since
let me tell you
traveling and stuff.
You no doubt used to be a active booker.
I was.
There's a lot of great stuff that people never hear about. Enough people never hear about. There's a lot of fantastic bands out there.
Yes.
For whatever reason, they just never get their name out there, or people don't know about them.
I agree. I've always wanted to really help that.
I was doing one of these things some time ago, and a guy asked me, he said, what's one of your biggest frustrations related to this? And the only thing I could say was that I know there's a lot of great stuff out there, and I will never know about it. I will never experience it because there's not enough time.
No, there's not. There's not enough time.
So, therefore, here I am now, freshly turned 62.
62!
At a punk show.
He's
about
62!
To go about here shortly, in about another 20 minutes, go
play a punk show. 62.
Make some noise.
Yep. In a fabulous little all-ages space in the middle
Mad
of
Maltz. Yeah, this is a great place.
This is a great place.
I'm glad it's here.
Yep. Still playing music, 62. Still going out to these punk shows. Still going out, talking to people. And now, no Asylum. You guys are very political.
Oh yeah.
You have a very, very strict stance on things, which
it can be a turnoff to some people. But
yeah.
We are who we are. There's a reason. We are who we are, and we do what we do, and stand for what we stand for.
Yep.
And I have a feeling it's going to become more necessary.
I saw him for 1 second.
More vital as time goes on.
And I think that it's also saying a lot of what a lot of us feel and believe. I mean, that's what music is. It's a big representation of people.
That can be the best and worst of things. Some years ago, there was an interview on a podcast, and it was Ozzy and Johnny Rock and Sex Pistols having a conversation. Little hint, when you got two working-class British guys like that in the slums of England, there's going to come a point where you don't understand a word they're saying.
Nothing. Right? Those accents are going to come
Can you imagine Ozzy and Johnny Rock have a conversation?
Wow.
About halfway through it, I'm like, I need subtitles.
I need the English in English.
But the gist of the conversation was Rotten saying something to Ozzy like,
But it's not like
you know, Black Sabbath talked about it a lot, where you guys were so at odds with the flower power culture at the
and he
time.
says some weird
And y'all were singing, you're doing these songs about all these horrors
it's
of the
pretty
world.
much normal. Like one
It's
weird
all
thing
real
he
life.
said was like, yeah,
All this
you know,
nightmare things.
everyone's fine with
Years later,
gay and
I'm
trans
doing what I do in the
people.
Sex
Like, the right
Pistols.
is
I'm
fine with gay and trans people.
calling it
They
like it
should
is, how
in the
horrible
face.
things
It's just
are.
like, yeah, that's
You ever
exactly
wish we were
every
wrong?
homophobic-
You ever
It's
wish
like,
that we
it's
had been
It can't
here
be.
40 years later, that we could look back and go, God, we were stupid fools to think this. Unfortunately, it's still relevant.
Yeah.
And Ozzy was,
That is the only way.
much as I could make out, Ozzy's like, yeah.
Yeah. Very relevant.
I wish we could
Still
look back on
relevant.
that stuff from you were writing back in the 70s and laugh at how
When shit's just like,
delusional it was, and unfortunately, it's all true.
It's all true.
Yeah,
And
I
it is
have a gut feeling with no Asylum, we're going to go through a similar experience.
I think so too.
exactly.
But I enjoy it. I enjoy your music, and
Yeah,
I'm
trying to take
right there
away
with all of it. I mean, the things that you represent, unity, everybody, you know, being able to be who they are and live their lives the way that they want to live it. And
As long as they're not hurting anyone.
right, then it's nobody's damn business.
Yeah.
Like,
Nobody's damn business.
People that shout the most about minding your own business and staying out of their business are here lately some of the worst about minding your fucking business.
They should learn
Trying to stick their nose into your
because
business.
when you don't teach,
It ain't gonna happen.
about
Nope.
things, that is how
Nope.
people
Then
take
it's
advantage.
yeah. Don't. I like to keep
Also,
mine to myself.
if you teach kids about,
But I love to meet people and have great conversations.
then they can grow
And I love what is happening here. I love all of these young people and all of the makeup and the clothes and expressing themselves and being who they are, exactly as they are, and to have a place that
I had a fairly genteel home life. It wasn't Leave It to Beaver. We had our struggles.
just because we hide
But
it.
it was a fairly genteel home life.
No one should feel like that.
I think what
Great
happened
that
with
they
me,
hide it because it's inappropriate.
around the time I was about 9 or 10 years old, I started seeing what was going on in other people's homes, like friends of mine's homes. And I'm like, what do you mean there's abuse? What do you mean there's neglect? What do you mean there's dysfunction?
Yeah, because I saw.
Because, like I say, I didn't grow up Leave It to Beaver, but
right.
I began, I had a real quick realization that most home lives are not like mine. It's not Christmas presents on Christmas, you know, birthday cake and flying kites in the park and the stuff I grew up experiencing. You know, I mean, we had our rough moments.
Right.
Memphis, by its nature, can be a rough place to grow up.
Yeah.
You got to survive sometimes. But I think seeing what was going on in other homes was such a revelation. And I was just a little kid, and I didn't know how to process this. And the only thing I knew to do was lash out. Because I felt helpless. I wanted to make things better. But I couldn't. I'm just a freaking kid.
Right.
And I'm not a particularly smart or
I do,
sophisticated.
but
I'm an emotionally unstable wreck. And I always liked hard music. You know, I had my uncle turning me on to Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, and Black Sabbath at an early age. My father was a disc jockey,
Oh
so he's
wow.
bringing home all these records like Reeves, Revival, and all that.
I love me some
And-
CCR, man.
Oh yeah, and Bob Dylan. There was a lot of turmoil going on in the country at the time. This was the end of the '60s, beginning of the '70s. I guess I was primed for something like punk. Frustration, angst, just hostility towards the world around me. It just seemed so fake and unfair and so cold. But I couldn't do anything about it. What am I going to do?
I'm a very,
Just a freaking kid.
very.
Right.
So I tell people to this day, no matter what band it is, whether it's Social Treason or Blood Red Baby Blue or No Asylum, Random Conflict, you name it. I'm not trying to be a rock star. That was never the goal. I'm lashing out. I'm just wanting to lash out at what is around me that I'm finding wrong.
I mean, Nadia's super.
I like that. I like that a lot because that's what I feel like. especially like when I was booking shows, I needed to do that. I needed to be in rooms with other people. I needed to be in an where I could scream and yell and stomp and enjoy the music.
therapeutic.
And it's extremely therapeutic. It really, really is. Even Black Eyes. I had 2 at Random Conflict shows. 2 Black Eyes. Not your fault.
Try to sue me, I will dig
I
up-
would never. I
I'll
would
dig
never.
up 50 witnesses.
I
I
would
swear I
never.
never left Memphis.
I would never. Yeah,
I
I
hang
would
out with lots of attorneys.
it was just kind of the way life was for me then. But I mean, so I don't, and we don't feel like we're alone in that. When musicians are
I think it's
making
one
that
of the most
music,
important things.
and you're lashing out, we're lashing out with you.
The only thing I could say to people is, look, welcome people to your scene. I mean, you know, kind of, we live in a pretty fucked up world.
Yes, we do.
And if someone's doing something inappropriate or wrong, call them out on it and exile them if need be. But be welcoming.
Yeah.
You might be the one. It might be what makes the difference to some people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still get messages from people all the time, and I'm like, amazes me that some band I'm in had that kind of impact on their lives. Not that I'm not happy about it, but I'm just kind of like, I have no idea how to respond to that. Except, well, thanks for the support. I'm glad it helped you.
That's awesome.
I just had a guy upstairs before you and I just met just now telling me that. Recognized me as I was coming down the steps, and I'm like, wow, okay, it's heavy.
That's great. Yep. We people influence people. Yep. Music influences people. People influence people. We experience each other and together. Yep.
I will do it through different means. You know.
Yeah.
And one woman I know is an incredibly gifted artist and a big name in the art world, and that's her way of
Yeah.
getting her emotions, coming to grips with it.
That's awesome.
Well, speaking of that,
I would say I think you got to go play soon.
Yeah,
I want
I should
Phil.
probably
Thank
go
you
do
so
that.
much. I'm just gonna say bye and thank you so much. Oh, and this cat book, this is for you.
oh, thank you.
I found it on my way here in one of those boxes.
Probably a few of mine are in here. It's called Bad
Bad
Cat.
Cats. I know you
Sure,
love cats.
some of mine are in here probably.
Yes.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much.
Thanks for doing this.
This is fun. And
Best luck. Best.